Dear friends, welcome to Learning Solutions, a channel dedicated to the study of English language and literature. My name is Shiv Narayan. Today I am going to talk on types of literary criticism. But before that, I request you to subscribe to the channel so you will not miss the notifications of my upcoming videos. Let's begin our talk on types of literary criticism. Criticism or literary criticism is the overarching term for the studies concerned with defining, classifying, analyzing, interpreting and evaluating works of literature. Since there are many ways of looking at literature, we find many different approaches and practices of studying literature. Because of this, there have been different criticisms and theories. Some of them are being discussed here. They are theoretical criticism, practical or applied criticism, textual or ontological criticism, comparative criticism, psychological criticism, archetypal criticism, and sociological and Marxist criticism. Let's see them one by one. Theoretical criticism basically deals with literary aesthetics. In this criticism, attention is focused on literature in general. A study is made of the process of creation and the basic principles of artistic beauty, and in this way a literary theory is presented. In England, theoretical criticism began with the publication of Sir Philip Sidney's Apology for Poetry. This was one of the earliest works of literary criticism in English literature. Sidney considered poetry as the oldest of all branches of learning and established its superiority. His work was the first serious attempt to apply the classical rules to English poetry. In the 17th century, another critic, John Dryden, showed keen interest in literary aesthetics. By the 18th century, aesthetics was rampantly followed by many critics. Important texts in this type of criticism are Joseph Addison's Essays on the Imagination, published in 1712, Edmund Burke's The Sublime and the Beautiful, published in 1757, Sir Joshua Reynolds' Discourses, published in 1778. The mania with aestheticism comes to an end with Samuel Coleridge's Biographia Literaria, published in 1817. In a nutshell, we can say the theoretical criticism based on the idea of aestheticism began with Sidney in 1595 and ended with Coleridge in 1817. Practical criticism began in the 1920s with a series of experiments by the Cambridge critic I. A. Richards. He gave poems to students without any information about who wrote them or when they were written. In Practical Criticism of 1929, he reported on and analyzed the results of his experiments. The objective of his work was to encourage students to concentrate on the words on the page rather than relying on preconceived or received beliefs about a text. For Richards, this form of close analysis of anonymous poems was ultimately intended to have psychological benefits for the students. By responding to all the currents of emotion and meaning in the poems and passages of prose which they read, the students were to achieve what Richards called an organized response. This meant that they would clarify the various currents of thought in the poem and achieve a corresponding clarification of their own emotions. In the work of Richards' most influential student, William Empson, practical criticism provided the basis for an entire critical method. In Seven Types of Ambiguity, published in 1930, Empson developed his undergraduate essays for Richards into a study of the complex and multiple meanings of poems. His work had a profound impact on a critical movement known as the New Criticism, the exponents of which tended to see poems as elaborate structures of complex meanings. New critics would usually pay relatively little attention to the historical setting of the works which they analyzed, treating literature as a sphere of activity of its own. In the work of F.R. Lewis, the close analysis of text became a moral activity in which a critic would bring the whole of his sensibility to bear on literary text and test its sincerity and moral seriousness. The approach was significantly developed later by a group of American poets and critics, including R.P. Blackmer, Clint Brooks, John Crowe Ransom, Alan Tate, Robert Penn Warren, and William K. Wimsatt. Practical criticism differed greatly from previous forms of criticism as it dismissed authorial intent and particularly ignore biographical and historical information about an author. Instead, it interpreted literature solely on the basis of the cohesiveness of the work. Textual or ontological criticism is one of the dominant trends in the approaches of criticism. For the textual or ontological critic, the text under consideration is a thing in itself, and it is examined and analyzed without any consideration of extrinsic factors such as biography, history, sociology, psychology, etc. The critic concentrates on the structure of the poem and on the various elements that go to make up that structure. Words, diction, language, image, meter, tone, theme, etc. are all closely studied. These textual or ontological critics are known as new critics or formalistic critics. For these new critics, the poem is the thing in itself and the text is minutely examined and studied, word by word and line by line, without any reference to any other extrinsic considerations. Obscure allusions, references, quotations, etc. are thus explained and a better understanding of the meaning of the text is presented. This criticism is explanatory and interpretative and conducive to a healthier and more intelligent appreciation. Practical or applied criticism, which we have discussed earlier, is part of this ontological criticism. The critics such as R.P. Blackmore, Clint Brooks, John Crowe Ransom, Alan Tate, Robert Penn Warren, and William K. Wimsatt belong to this endeavor. Another criticism is comparative criticism. Comparative criticism seeks to evaluate a work by comparing it with other works of similar nature, either in one's own language or in other languages. Matthew Arnold was its first advocate and exponent. It is in his essay on the function of criticism at the present time, published in 1866, he prescribes his well-known touchstone method. Arnold points out that it is useless to lay down for the purpose abstract characteristics of the high quality of a poem. He says it is much better simply to have recourse to concrete example, to take specimens of poetry of the very highest quality, and to say the characters of a high quality of poetry are what is expressed there. He tells us to avoid the false valuations of the historic estimate and the personal estimate and attain to a real estimate by learning to feel and enjoy the best work of the real classic and appreciate the wide difference between it and all lesser works. What he really suggested was that passages, extracts, quotations from different works of art should be compared to know the excellence of the work under consideration. Even brief quotation would do. The comparative method makes exacting demands upon the critic. It requires him to acquire a thorough knowledge not only of any one literature but of a number of literatures, and the larger the number the better. Another important criticism is psychological criticism. The psychological criticism was the result of new knowledge in the field of psychology and the research of Sigmund Freud, Jacques Lacan, Carl Gustav Jung, and some others. Their findings have been published in the books like The Interpretation of Dreams, The Psychopathology of Everyday Life by Freud, Eccrits by Lacan, Psychology of the Unconscious, Psychological Types by Jung. These psychologists provided new interpretations and hidden significance of the literary texts. Psychology has provided the critic with a more precise language with which to discuss the creative process, and it enabled the critic to study the interior life of the writer and then to study his work with reference to it. The unconscious repressions and derives of the artist are discovered, and through this inner knowledge a better understanding and more exact interpretation of the text is obtained. The significant examples of their study are Freud's interpretation of Hamlet, Lacan's interpretation of Edgar Allan Poe's story, The Purloined Letter, and Jung's interpretation of myths as collective unconscious in many literary texts. Archetypal criticism is a branch of psychological criticism which deals with the unconscious of the human race. It is also called the totemic, mythological, or ritualistic criticism. Archetypal critic tries to examine literature with the hope of discovering the existence of underlying mythological patterns. This criticism is based on the Freud's theory of collective unconscious. It is argued and speculated that the civilized man unconsciously preserves those prehistorical areas of knowledge which he articulated obliquely in primitive myths. The argument and speculation explains the somewhat mysterious appeal of mythical stories long after the supernatural elements in them have ceased to command belief. Primitive myths have been studied painstakingly by writers like James Frazer and Miss Jessie Weston. It has been demonstrated that human behavior and culture follow the same patterns in all ages and places. Carl Gustav Jung's Psychology of the Unconscious and Psychological Types are the two important texts for the study of archetypal criticism. Another kind of criticism from the 20th century is the sociological criticism. It examines a work of art with reference to the social milieu of its author. The sociological critic is basically interested in understanding the social condition of the author and how he or she responds to it. According to Henry Lenin, the relationship between literature and society are reciprocal. Literature is not only the effect of social causes, it is also the cause of social effects. Marxist criticism is only a specialized branch of sociological criticism. It uses Marxist interpretation and evaluation of social forces to the study and examination of works of literature. Marxist criticism is the outcome of Karl Marx's research as presented in his Das Kapital. Dear friends, this was all about types of literary criticism. I hope you will get some valuable information from this. Thank you very much.